The beginning of Lisa's problems. My sister lost custody of her children, but she came up with a terrible plan for my daughter. First, she took her to Disneyland because we were too busy to take her ourselves. I got her arrested, and now my mother wants to disown me. Lisa, my sister, has faced many obstacles in her life, but this was far beyond anything I could have imagined. She is 28 years old and has been struggling with addiction since she fell in with a bad crowd in high school and started experimenting with everything from marijuana to more dangerous drugs. Then there was Lisa, a senior in high school when I was in 9th grade, and I watched her grades drop to 0, and I watched her come home late at night with red eyes and a blank, detached look that begged me to say something. She went to college but dropped out her senior year, so she didn't get a degree, which, by the way, constantly drove our parents crazy. I saw how it killed our father when someone would ask, "What's Lisa going to do after school?" For years, she bounced around from job to job, almost always working as a waitress in various bars and diners. She would often call me in tears after getting fired, most of the time because she was late for work or didn't show up because of drugs. I lost count of how many times my parents bailed her out because she couldn't pay her rent or got kicked out of yet another place. Our house was always tense. Lisa would promise to get clean, then disappear for a week, 2, 3. That's how she met her ex-husband Jake about 6 years ago when she was working night shifts at a bar. He was a regular customer, and unlike the men she usually dated, Jake seemed stable. At first, it seemed like Jake might be a good influence on her. He convinced her to quit drugs, and she even went to rehab and stayed clean for a while. I remember feeling hopeful when she showed up for family dinner on time, ate, talked, didn't fall asleep or leave, but stayed and hung out. Soon after, they got married, and now they have 2 children, Emma, 8, and Tyler, 6. For almost 4 years, things were so stable that I started to believe she had really changed. She worked part-time and seemed to be doing well as a mother, although there were some warning signs. We all had no trouble making decisions about the children, but she would panic. There were times when Emma and Tyler seemed overly attached to adults to some people. Then last year, our father died. Just died of a heart attack, and Lisa fell apart. The grief overwhelmed her. Instead of turning to Jake or another adult, she withdrew into herself and started making dangerous, stupid decisions. She stopped caring for the children as she had before, often leaving them with me when she said she needed time to work through things with her closest friends. At first, I didn't mind. I work from home, and my daughter Sophie loved spending time with her cousins. But soon, it became the norm. Lisa would leave for work in the morning and come home late at night, sometimes smelling of alcohol or something worse. 8 months later, she left me with the children for the entire weekend without calling once. Jake was furious when he arrived from New York last night. He didn't know where Lisa had gone. That's when I realized I had to tell him the truth. Emma and Tyler were increasingly confused and hurt by their mother's strange behavior and constant disappearances. Jake started investigating. Eventually, he found the woman, Lisa, wandering around the nearest park at 2 a.m. No shoes, no bag, clearly drunk and disoriented. We tried to convince her to return to rehab, but she refused, claiming that she was just going through a rough patch due to the loss of our father. Jake then discovered that she had been cheating on him with her drug dealer who, coincidentally, was the same man who had been supplying her with drugs. Jake immediately filed for divorce. It was an ugly custody battle with plenty of evidence of her drug addiction, neglect, and inability to be a parent. The children wouldn't even look her in the eye. To make it clear that they wanted her gone, they stopped answering her calls. It took some time before Emma was able to put into words what exactly bothered her about her relationship with her mother. She once told me that her mother's absence from the house was a relief in a way because she never knew which version of her mother would show up. 6 months ago, the court granted Jake full custody. Except for supervised visits, which she rarely attended, Lisa had no parental rights. But when Lisa lost her children, she started coming to my house every day, from morning until late at night, as if she had nothing to do and nowhere to go. She would arrive right after Sophie left for school and wouldn't leave until dinner. I began to feel that she was trying to expend her energy by focusing obsessively on Sophie, exhibiting some of her most intrusive behaviors from her time on drugs. She brought Sophie ice cream every day, despite my protests that it would ruin her dinner. She was also against homework, saying she wouldn't waste Sophie's time because she was too smart for that. Once she even told my daughter that she didn't need to do well in school because she was pretty enough for a man to take care of her. It was like a bucket of cold water being thrown over me. Sophie sat at the kitchen table trying to solve a math problem, while Lisa looked for ways to distract her from her homework and draw her into a fun and more interesting life. So when Sophie insisted on doing her homework, Lisa laughed and said, "You don't need math? Pretty girls like you have an advantage. They need an education." I immediately scolded her and told Sophie that she, more than anyone else, needed an education, and Lisa's interference only intensified. She pestered me with questions about how I was raising my daughter, saying that I worked too much and didn't spend enough quality time with Sophie. Why was so much attention paid to food, laundry, politeness to adults, and going to bed on time rather than having fun? She insisted that Sophie wanted fun, not strictness, that David and I were too strict. She undermined the rules we had set, such as bedtimes and screen time, by telling Sophie that we were too uptight. Then one morning, David casually mentioned that Lisa might as well move in with us since she was here all the time anyway, and she agreed. We decided that she would be Sophie's full-time nanny, and I could go back to doing what I wanted to do. It was a turning point. I told her to leave and give us some space. Then it all escalated into a huge argument, and she accused me of being selfish and not understanding how she needed to feel needed. This week, we took the perfect trip to Disneyland for Sophie's 11th birthday. We had been looking forward to it for months. Lisa found the trip and begged for an invitation. When I hesitated, she said that if we bought the tickets, she would book the hotel. I reluctantly agreed that she could go, but hoped it would be a nice distraction for her. Sophie believed it would be great to have her aunt go with her. But yesterday, on the day of departure, Lisa picked Sophie up from school and didn't bring her home. 4:30 p.m. I started to worry. By 6 p.m., I was in a panic. I kept calling Lisa, but her phone went to voicemail. I couldn't stop thinking about all the terrible things that could have happened to her. Drugs, accidents, strangers, criminals. My heart was beating like crazy. I felt like I was going to pass out. I called David at work. He heard the panic in my voice and rushed home. We searched the house, not knowing whether to call the police. Then I called my mother. Lisa must have taken Sophie to her house. As soon as she answered the phone, I knew something was wrong. When I asked if she knew where Lisa and Sophie were, she paused. Then she admitted that Lisa had taken Sophie to Disneyland. Lisa had kept the whole plan from us. She had booked hotels and bought tickets, and we had been so busy that we couldn't take her with us, as she had told Sophie. My mother had known about it the whole time. I told her I didn't approve, but I felt sorry for Lisa and wanted her to feel better. I was furious. I waved goodbye and called 911 to report the kidnapping. I told them about Lisa's drug addiction, her unstable condition, and how I feared for Sophie's safety. The police found Lisa and arrested her 2 hours later. She resisted the police and was handcuffed. They brought Sophie home. She was confused and upset. Lisa told her that it was a birthday rescue and that we didn't love her enough to take her with us. Sophie didn't understand why her aunt had been arrested and kept asking about it. I didn't even know how to explain it to her. I was trying to figure it all out myself. Lisa is now charged with kidnapping and resisting arrest. I haven't spoken to my mother since. I feel completely betrayed. She deliberately put my child in danger. David wants to press charges against her, and I sincerely believe he is right. This was not just a misunderstanding. Lisa Kidd, in pursuit of her own goals, went behind our backs, kidnapped my daughter, put her on public display without our permission, and endangered her health and safety. Many people continue to say that she is sick and needs help, which of course is true. But at what point does sickness cease to be an excuse for her actions? I'm losing my mind. I never, not in a million years, believed that something like this could happen to my family. And to all those who said that Lisa definitely kidnapped the child and that it wasn't just some strange family misunderstanding, stupid mother, it was because of those words that I didn't doubt myself, because I had doubted every step I took from the very beginning. You know your child is missing, and that's all you know. So the fear of not knowing where they are, what they're doing, and if they're okay is a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. I still wonder what would have happened if the police hadn't found them in time. Others told me that I should have just let Lisa take Sophie to Disneyland. But to be honest, I couldn't have allowed that. I don't even trust Lisa to keep Sophie safe or use common sense in these situations, and she has a dark past involving violence, addiction, and instability. All of this has really traumatized David. He hasn't gone back to work because he doesn't want to leave Sophie alone, even at school. Then he picks her up from my work and stays with her until I finish work every day. I understand how this threatens his safety. He keeps telling me, if a family member can do this to us, who can we trust? And maybe he's right. Next month, she's facing a trial in district court. She is charged with second-degree kidnapping and resisting arrest. I hired a lawyer to help us come up with a plan and take the first steps toward getting a restraining order. Lisa violated it by taking Sophie across state lines and even lying to Sophie and the court about our agreement. Technically, this is a federal crime punishable by 3 to 5 years in prison. Meanwhile, my mother keeps calling and texting me, begging me to drop the charges. Lisa needs to get treatment from a psychiatrist, not sit in jail. Lisa did a good thing for Sophie. She has nothing else, she said. He says I'm heartless for taking someone who is grieving and depressed to court. What angers me most is that my mother says it was a bad decision, and I say, no, you're not even taking responsibility for your actions. But Lisa had been planning this for weeks, and she lied to Sophie, to the whole family. It wasn't an emotional outburst. It was betrayal. I have a lot of relatives who feel the same way I do. Lisa has practically crossed a line that cannot be crossed, my aunt said. That's no reason to take everything that belongs to others, my uncle reminded them. Lisa needs punishment, not sympathy. Next week, I'm going to file a restraining order. We're also looking into other legal options to make sure that when Lisa gets out, she can't go near Sophie or our house. Father and son clash 10 days ago. Everything went wrong in a way I couldn't have imagined. 3 days ago, my mother showed up at our house and went crazy. She yelled at David and me while Sophie stood there watching us. Between 6 and 7 p.m., I heard a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother's face, hostile, like I'd never seen her before. At first, I thought something had happened to Lisa while she was in prison. But as soon as I opened the door, my mother exploded. You're ruining Lisa's life and acting like a heartless bitch towards your sister, she screamed. Ravenna smelled of alcohol, and I began to understand why she was acting so violently and irrationally. She was screaming so loudly that the neighbors gathered around. I was ashamed and scared. I had never seen her behave like this in public. Sophie ran in, panicked, and my mother lunged at her. Parents are cruel people, she said to Sophie. Dad and Mom were cruel when they sent Aunt Lisa away when she was preparing a surprise for you on your special day. Sophie was terrified. I felt that this would be very traumatic for her. I told her to go to her room, but she started crying and asking me, "Why did Grandma behave like that?" David tried to calm my mom down and invited her in to discuss everything, but she lashed out at him, saying that if he was turning me against my family, it was his fault. Then she said something I still can't believe, that what Lisa did wasn't a big deal, and we should have just let her take Sophie to Disneyland. She continued to defend Lisa, saying that she was just grieving and trying to make new memories. I tried to argue that what Lisa did was deliberate deception, misrepresentation, and kidnapping, but it would have sounded like something Charlie Brown's teacher would say. She told me that I abandoned Lisa when she was desperate, that it was all my fault. That's when I lost it. I told her that Lisa had lost Emma and Tyler because of her own choices, her addiction, her neglect, her affair with a drug dealer, and that I had only one job: to keep Sophie safe. Up until that point, David had been calm, but now he was, twitching as if his wrists were bound not with iron, but with wire. He told me that my mother was an accomplice for letting Lisa go and that he hoped she would get the maximum sentence. He was unequivocal. Anyone who stole a child deserved what they got, he said. Then came the ultimatum. My mother said I had to either support Lisa without pressing charges, or I would be considered dead to the family and lose my inheritance. She said I was a monster for ruining Lisa's life. The whole argument lasted 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. At the end, Sophie was in tears and David was shaking with rage. I told her, "Mom, you need to leave, and if you come back to my house and start yelling at Sophie again, I'll call the police." After that, David and I went to install a security camera. We no longer feel safe. My mother may return. Most likely, when she gets out of prison, she will simply try to feed Lisa. We went to a service company and scheduled the installation of cameras with full coverage for the following week. I have never been so far away from my mother, and it is killing me. I'm not going to put Sophie in danger just because I don't want to disrupt family harmony. David reminds me that we're doing the right thing. Those who don't understand why we're protecting our child from them don't deserve to be in our lives. Lisa had her court hearing last week, and I wanted to let you know how it went. Many of you have been following our story, rooting for us, and praying for us. Lisa's trial was supposed to start in early February. My mother, of course, hired lawyers for her. It hurt me deeply to realize that she had spent all that money on Lisa's defense and didn't even mention Sophie's trauma. Lisa's defense tried to portray her as a crazy, despicable woman who just wanted to take her daughter away on Sophie's birthday. They even brought in people to testify about how much Lisa loved her children and how hard it was for her to lose custody of her own children. But the case was clear. The prosecution had hotel and ticket reservations proving that Lisa had been planning this for weeks. She swore in court that Lisa had lied to her. There was also police camera footage of Lisa resisting arrest. Phone records showed that Lisa and my mother had conspired weeks in advance, refuting their claim that the escape was a spontaneous decision. Lisa took the stand and said she believed we had agreed to give her Sophie. But when I asked her why she had told Sophie that we were too busy, she couldn't answer. She lamented that she missed Emma and Tyler and that she just wanted to be a good aunt. But the jury didn't believe her. Neither did the judge. In his sentencing, he criticized Lisa's complete lack of remorse and her attempts to portray herself as a victim. But he said that kidnapping a child from another state against their will and then kidnapping the victims and deceiving them is a crime. Lisa was sentenced to 3 years in prison for kidnapping and 6 months for resisting arrest. She will spend at least 2.5 years in prison. The court also issued a 4-year restraining order prohibiting her from coming within 500 feet of our home, Sophie's school, and her workplace, as well as prohibiting her from contacting Sophie in any way. We also filed restraining orders against my mother, and those orders were granted. In 2011, the court ruled that what she did, risking a plane to get me, she lied to local police after I tried to fly with us to Fernando, Mexico, risking the plane for us, stalking, harassment, taking her mother and us hostage, and even attempting to use this incident to get us to drop the charges against her, trying to grab the stick out of my hand as we were leaving the airport, was dangerous and threatening. Both restraining orders are valid for 4 years and have the same restrictions on approaching me. And only when they felt that everything was okay for me did I finally feel safe. Sophie is feeling much better. She is calmer now that Lisa and my mother are not calling her or coming near her. David has returned to work, free from fear, and my wife and I have begun seeing a family therapist to deal with the trauma that has been inflicted on our marriage and to heal from it. This has been the most difficult period of my life, but we are doing everything we can to keep our daughter safe and maintain peace, even if it means cutting people out of what was once our family.